Hello everyone, my name is Nick, this is Deep Dives, and welcome to Interview Sessions. Today, I'm honoured to be joined by the immensely talented and quite frankly dashing Luke Roberts. Luke started out his acting career in Band of Brothers before finding a long-term home on Holby City as Dr. Joseph Byrne, before moving on to play Eric Beaumont on Ransom, all while landing multiple film roles such as Batman and Damper, all leading up to his role as James Sunderland in Silent Hill 2. Luke, welcome to the show.
Nick, thank you so much. That was a lovely little refresher for me. I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thought I'd take you through a little history of, it's like This Is Your Life, but in,
You did, and you have the This Is Your Life voice as well, which is magic.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Before we start properly, just to, if give you a bit of background, this channel is rooted in Silent Hill, and it's how it started. The first ever deep dive was on the original Silent Hill 2.
Oh, truly? I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. I wanted to personally explain to everyone what the game meant, the hidden, subtext, I guess, and meaning behind all the characters and creatures and everything that was going on. I thought it was really important for people to understand, the story. So I spent 2 years making a video. Research and blood, sweat and tears. But it launched this channel, and we've kind of come full circle today getting you on because, playing James Sunderland in the remake of Silent Hill 2, it's a mind-blowing experience right now. So I'm trying not to fangirl too much, but
I can take it.
Yeah, so I'm hiding my excitement quite well, I think, but I'm quite. You can't see my feet, so it's like a duck on water.
Amazing.
Right, we'll kick off with the first question. When you landed the role of James Sunderland, had you heard of the Silent Hill series before, and what made you want to go for that particular role?
I had good questions. I had heard of the Silent Hill franchise, although when I auditioned, I was not aware that it was involved. As far as I knew, I was going up for a sort of an unknown project involving a small American town and a hapless wanderer, and I knew that it was the horror genre. But I to be honest with you, when I did because it started with a self-tape for me, which is quite unusual for what I thought was voice work at the time. But they asked for a self-tape. Oh, that's interesting. And it appealed to me because as I read the again, sort of cut and paste pieces of scenes, pieces of cut scenes. It read to me like an Arctic horror, which is one of my favorite genres. So I was thinking The Thing, and I was like, oh, this is exciting. And so I dressed up. I had very, very long hair at the time, and I dressed up in my best effort at an Arctic coat. And went and did my best Macready. I guess I was all bearded at the time. I think it was early days of COVID, and so that's what I thought I was going up for. And it turned out it was part of this, this wonderful franchise. So I was aware of it. It was in the ether, and I knew that there was a series of movies as well, which had sort of been spawned from the games. But I guess I know a fair bit more about it these days.
Yeah. I mean, your performance in the game, I've said this a lot, but I'll gladly say it again, it's absolutely stunning. There's particular scenes there's a particular one in the bar, when you're in the bar actually with Maria, and once again, this is not story spoilers, so this is okay, but there's a particular facial expression you're pulling towards the end of that scene, and you can literally see the struggle in your face, and I was just like, oh, that's good. That's very good. Without saying a word, you were conveying all these emotions, and it was so impressive. Thank God the technology of mocap, because as I say, we got to see every micro expression. From an acting perspective, how did you get yourself into a place emotionally to convey everything James was feeling, and what are the mechanics of portraying a character that is suffering from PTSD?
Well, I mean, I think I've probably said this before. It's, I approach this as I would any role. You study the text, and you examine the scenario, and then you just sort of, I guess, you immerse yourself in it. It really does help that when you're working across some good actors. Salome is fantastic, and it was, we both, I think, very quickly and very readily, were able to deep dive into the imaginary garden that is the world of Silent Hill. And you're absolutely right about the technology, that the fact that it can pick up the micro expressions, and you don't have to do very much. I mean, I'm a big fan of screen acting anyway, so
Yeah.
I would rather see the character think the thought than telegraph it with a huh, so it's sort of, I guess it was a happy a confluence of or coming together of actor and material. This is quite small, nuanced stuff, and I just have to imagine myself in the scenario, and this is a hellish scenario, of course, but
Yeah.
in a way, my get out is he doesn't, he has a sense of something being very, very wrong, but it's not clear as to what it is. I know in that scene, I think perhaps you're referring to the struggle with the alcohol as well.
Yeah.
I mean that.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I'm long enough in the tooth now to have enjoyed or avoided my own fair share of temptations, and we know what it's like to deny and to indulge, and what our weaknesses are. And I suppose when you're in that scenario, you think of those things, and I suppose the alcohol, I guess, while we were doing it in that moment, was sort of a micro version of the greater temptation of time with Maria, because she represents all that. I mean, I'm saying this is very broad brushstrokes, but sort of represents all that he desires. And so there's a certain amount of resisting the temptation of Maria, and I suppose it's very playable with alcohol. You offered something that you want, and then you know better than to take it. But yeah, that was a fun scene. I mean, of course, we're playing all of these scenes in an empty volume, so you're standing or sitting or pretending to sit on a what effectively looks like a large table tennis table,
Amazing.
with very little. But I think there was a platform constructed, so I have to confess, I've sat in a number of bars in my life, so that part was not hard to imagine. But yeah, it's I mean, that's the joy of performing, is that you get to imagine the whole thing, and there's no better environment than a mocap volume for imagining, because there's nothing there. It's all in your head, or in the director's head, the writer's head, and your fellow actors' heads. And so that's sort of the fun of it. It's really like being a kid again. You get to just imagine all of the elements of the external world. And yes, I whether how successfully I do it or not is another question. But I do enjoy all the small stuff, all the thoughts, and the that type of acting is probably my favorite. I love an ECU. I love it when they come in close on the eyes and you just see a twitch or something that betrays what they purport to be thinking. So it's that stuff is great. And we had a lovely crew. I call them a crew, but they're really game developers. Very small. They were like four guys in the room with us, and they were really into it, and so that is infectious. They were so into the details of the scene and what it meant, that they had already painted a lovely picture for us. So yeah, it was. I'm glad you that scene resonated. It did for me. It was quite handy for that. I think we shot that relatively early on. It's quite handy because it's a, of course you have to imagine when you've, and I'm now super conscious of spoiling story, but
Yeah.
with a trauma like that, and I know you mentioned PTSD as well. With a trauma like that, I mean, thankfully I have to imagine it. I don't have anything in my life that is akin to that. So that's quite hard for you would be in danger of going insane, I think, as an actor if you went there. But certainly the temptation of an alcoholic beverage is a very playable action or scenario. So yeah, it was a useful key, I think, to lots of it actually, as I think of the Heaven Night scenes. Yeah, and it's fun, and that's the challenge we throw down for ourselves. Like, imagine you're walking into a room and because you're descending stairs, which are not there. And sometimes you just use your body and sink, and sometimes you get a couple of steps to set it up, and then it's. I'm drifting off topic, but yeah, it's nothing's there, and my job is to make sure that you feel like it is, and that's really fun, and that's the challenge of acting. And as for the PTSD, it's a horrible scenario. And James's get out is that he has this, what do we call it? Schizogenic amnesia. He doesn't remember what it is. He just there's this horrible pall of something dreadful hanging over him. But he doesn't have the specifics, does he? It's cool.
Really good answer. Thank you so much. That was
very long-winded.
No, it's good. The more the better.
Ask me about 3 questions.
Yeah, I know. I was a bit. I cheated a little bit, but which was the hardest scene, do you think, to film from an emotional standpoint?
Gosh. I mean,
maybe the bar one. I mean, I don't know if that was difficult or not, but bar one aside, I suppose.
Yeah, no, the bar seems none of the, again, you have good people around you. None of it's all a challenge, but kind of a welcome one. And I suppose I think is the water ending is the one which has is that I don't, let's not talk about that.
As long as there's no details, I think we all know that it exists.
But some of those impulses, those psychological impulses, fairly horrific, and as you're sort of mining the well of your own, psyche or trauma, it's quite they're quite challenging insofar as it's a dark set of thoughts to investigate and explore, and that stuff is maybe has an emotional toll. I won't say it's any more difficult, because sometimes it's very difficult just to pretend you're in an incredibly sunny place when somebody's just told you off for talking, while the crew are trying to rig a scene or whatever it might be. So, and then they say, okay, now you're top of the world. And I'm like, I feel bad. But I suppose emotionally grueling is that sequence when he releases the clutch and or rather takes the handbrake off and lets the car roll. That's pretty awful stuff. And because of that, I'm aware it's all very sensitive. You you put a little more pressure on yourself because you're like, I need to represent this appropriately,
Yeah.
awful as it is.
There's a variation of that of that ending as well. Once again, no spoilers, but it's expanded upon slightly. It's called Stillness, which honestly, and I don't think there's been a time yet where I haven't seen it that it's not made me cry because it is powerful, very powerful, and you do it so well. And it was just, I mean, hats off to the writing, the the setup of that scene, and then you obviously performing as well. It was just all, it really hit here. So fantastic.
I'm very happy that's the case. I'm very pleased that that's the case. Yeah, because it's heavy subject matter. And again, we're sort of, it's sort of it's an interesting challenge because you're sitting there with, on two chairs, or I'm sitting on one chair obviously, but there's sort of, maybe there's two or there's four rigged, and you're imagining where the rear view mirror is, and you're imagining the whole thing. And so yeah, but it's set up in Silent Hill lore, and it is what it is. So
yeah,
I'm glad that they worked. I've seen those back. I haven't actually played the game, but I have seen those cutscenes, and I was impressed at how well they had composited the performance, and they'd transferred it, because I was like, oh great, all those little thoughts, or interrupted thoughts, or half hopes that dissolve, it's all sort of there. So yeah, it's cool. I'm glad.
Do you have a favourite ending?
I mean, after talking about the heavy stuff, is it Leaving? Is the ending with,
yeah, Leave, yeah.
With Laura. I mean, I liked. I was happy that was there, as part of the greater smorgasbord of endings. But I was happy that was there, and even that, when we were doing it, it felt like it was tinged with great sadness because of everything else that's transpired. But I liked that one. In terms of, I was pleased, as I say, with those very somber endings. I was pleased that it read so well. So that's everybody. I meant everybody had done their job. It meant I had done my job, but it also meant that the animators had sort of found it and managed to get it in there. And it's quite interesting, because often in TV and film you cut out so much quicker, whereas this, by definition, I guess, Stillness, it sits on it. And,
yeah, it really does.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tricky territory, but I think if you've played the full game, you've kind of earned that.
I think so. It's a journey, isn't it, at the end of the day? And you're learning. How can I say this without? Once again, people that have seen videos on this channel already will have more than likely know the ins and outs of the game by now, and all the endings and what it involves. But to those that don't know, I don't want to spoil anything, just in case you're here because you typed in Luke Roberts on the internet and need to see him, and you don't want the game spoiled just yet. So I'll try to avoid any major spoilers for anything. But if you are interested, there's plenty of deep dives out there into the subject matter. And with James, he's one of those characters who starts as the protagonist, and you kind of learn the ugly truth as the game goes on. Perceptions shift to become something more sinister. And I think you may have been asked this before, but do you think James is the real bad guy, or just misunderstood? Should we feel sorry for him, or does he kind of get what he deserves through his punishment, I guess?
Well, I hope I'll answer it in a roundabout way. I hope
Mm.
there's enough humanity there for for audiences, or rather the players, to empathize with him and go on the journey with him, because it's a journey of discovery for him as well. I don't think he's certainly not in my mind, he's certainly not a cutout villain by any means. Is he a good guy or a bad guy? It's a tricky. He's done again. He may have done things he didn't know he had done, and those things may not have been good things. But as you, I mean, again, I'll say something a lot of people say, and I think they say it because there's some truth in it. When you're playing a character, you don't tend to judge them, but also in life, I think most people don't go around going, I'm a really bad person. I know I'm a bad person. Most people think they're doing the right thing. And it will be on a spectrum of selfishness, won't it? You're either an altruistic person who's always doing good for everyone else, or you're just looking after you. And if you only dwell in that region, you're probably not a great person. And I think James is going through the town, trying to aid and abet, or at least assist people that he encounters. And he's trying to, he seems to want the best for them. And he also holds his wife very dearly, and he's trying to find her. So he's, experiencing a lot of very human emotions. He's in love still, and he's trying to find someone who he suspects might be in distress, and he is also trying to assist people he meets, strangers, effectively. Some may just be projections of his own psyche, but he's trying to do right by them, and he's trying to navigate his way through what he perceives to be an external horrific landscape. Of course, as you continue through the game, you learn that isn't entirely true. But yeah, I think, so the question is, and I think that's an interesting question, and I hope we haven't wholeheartedly answered it with the game, is it a mask that's slipping, or is actually and he's a bad person underneath it, or is he actually he's a good person who's done a bad thing?
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I was reading a book a long time ago, and I've gone off. I'm going off book now, so apologies. It was I think it's called The Gift of Fear.
Okay.
Someone recommended it to me, and it was just about listening to your instincts and stuff. But in the book, I remember it touching upon about people having those moments in life where they could be, like you say, really good person going through, and then they have that one moment where they just snap and they don't think and they do something, and the next thing you know, they're in prison, or and they don't know why that or how they got there, and all it takes is like one bad day and to push anyone over the edge.
Yeah. I think that's a valid argument, and in some scenarios, I have no doubt that is true. And we all have our moments, don't we, where we have a little outburst of fury or frustration, and is that avoidant anxiety? Is that the thing that you don't say anything, you don't say anything, you don't say anything, and suddenly you flare up, and everyone goes, "Wow, you're crazy. What's wrong with you?" No, this is something that's always been bothering me. I just haven't said anything about it. Now I'm flaring up. It's a good concept that people just get pushed, or just letting the stresses of life build up. Sometimes, good people do bad things. It's a particularly bad thing in Silent Hill. But there are multiple perspectives on it as well. And it's a pretty delicate subject matter, and I think that's what's interesting about the game, because it does keep forcing you to ask questions.
Yes.
And to look at things from many vantage points. And it's I think that's why it's interesting and fertile territory for a conversation.
Yeah, and that's what makes it a masterpiece. I think it's an all-timer in a lot of people's eyes. It's well loved, despite the subject matter, despite the fact that actually it's tackling some very difficult subjects. I think people respect that.
Well, it's often great entertainments that are born out of a well documented and human horror story in this instance, but a true trauma, and it's and so people are connecting with it because there's a lot of humanity coursing through this. It's not just a supernatural entity that everybody should be afraid of because we've told you to be afraid of it. It's actually like, we might have to have a little think and possibly be a bit afraid of ourselves. We're all on some level dealing with that. But the gift of fear. If that isn't the title of the book, it should be, because it's a good one. Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? Our instincts are our best friends, and I don't know why it's put me in mind of something else I read at some point saying that I think it was just an article, but it's not great to be happy all the time. In fact it would be, we wouldn't survive.
No.
Sedated in this blissful state and not be sensitive to the warning signs in nature. So
100% agree.
Yeah, fear helps us maybe avoid some threats, and in this instance, perhaps it would have prevented some behavioural naughties as well.
Did you have to mocap much of the combat at all? And did your experience in swashbuckling and sword fighting help?
Well, obviously, this has never been put forth or thought about as a combat game. There are a lot of elements to it. Some obviously some puzzle solving. It's a psychological journey. But there is combat, and yes, I did simulate the strikes and the moves. I think some of it was probably added to, supplemented by people in the offices of Bloober. But no, essentially I did, and obviously I provide the vocal work and what have you. But it does. I suppose it does put you in mind of other scenarios, and yes, but hitting with a piece of wood is I guess it's the same strikes. It's the same directional strikes as if you had a sword or a weapon, a more conventional weapon. It's supposed to be messy though, and grubby, and he's not supposed to be a great fighter, and he's a civilian who's sort of forced to, in the, as we were talking about it, the fight or flight sense, he's just like surviving. Grab whatever you can and hit in whatever way. But it was me to some extent, I think. It's different. I'm imagining the lying figures and it's pretty awful. Yes, I did have to simulate, flinching from acidic vomit and that kind of thing, which is never good.
No,
you should avoid.
Always avoid people being sick on you if you can, folks.
Absolutely. No, it wasn't. It's not the most swashbuckling game. There was a little bit of swinging the mighty sword of the other character. I don't know how far we should go into that, but Yeah, that dude. That was me.
So
It was not so much swinging as dragging.
yeah,
But they also had me do that for obvious reasons that we cannot discuss without spoiling the overall story.
that's fair.
But yeah, no. It yes, not a big fight game, but I think it works quite well. I like the combat feels quite visceral.
So yeah, I mean the initial. I remember seeing people's reactions to it, and people were like, "Oh, this looks a bit too combat heavy this time around." And then you actually play it, and you're like, "This is really good." Like it's, and you can tell once again that, like you said, he's not a veteran. He's not a. He is a civilian trying to survive, but you can also see the subtle aggression, especially when he'll stomp on something. You know, you can see it's like there's a hidden anger there that's bubbling to the surface, and it's like, okay, I can see that, I can feel it, and it's really gritty and it's good.
Yeah, good. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's sort of yeah, he's supposed to be the everyman, but in extreme circumstances. Which I always enjoy that kind of drama. Like, when you have somebody who's either what's the word? They've either lost it and flipped out, or they're just actually pushed to it. And I think ordinary people do extraordinary things.
For sure.
When the circumstances call for it.
Amazing.
I've watched Salóme do anything. She's great. Yeah, she was terrific, and I particularly enjoyed what she did because she was very much channeling the original Maria and Mary, and I thought that was very cool, the way she's sort of taking some of the heightened highlights that are very important parts of the original game, and seamlessly weaving them into her own performance. I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, no, she was very good. I liked there were a few change ups which I appreciated. With the original being slightly over the top in terms of sexualization and sort of being like, oh hello, that kind of thing, and Salóme is a bit more subtle in her approach, but then, like you said, highlights certain parts, and it's like, okay, James is going to struggle here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to give everything its contextual time frame. In 2024, 2025, we don't need it quite so large.
Yeah.
It's palpable all the way through. It's still there, and I think tonally she is every bit the seductress. But right, you don't need the crop top and it's a little overkill. But there's a time and a place, and even in terms of performance, I have to you have to doff your cap to the original actors, because they did the benefit of as you said, the technology's ability to pick up micro expressions. I mean, they really, their faces were almost placeholders, and it was, if you didn't vocally and in an animated way with your body, telegraph and express those feelings, they just wouldn't have read. So now we don't have to do very much, and it suits me, I guess, because I'm lazy.
I mean, you're speaking to the right person here, so.
It was very, very, very little motion is required. You just have to sort of,
speaking of the original actors, actually, I mean, naturally, people were always going to compare you to Guy Cihi. With that, the fans do have a tendency to be strong-minded. Thankfully, it would seem people have been loving your performance. How have you found the fans' response to you playing James? And at any point while recording, did you think, damn, I might mess this up?
I was put in mind and aware of the sacredness of the original material and the game and everyone's fondness for it, and rightly so. So you definitely didn't want to screw it up. I was happily unaware of the cultural importance of it originally when I first started working on it, and then one of the developers, just the cinematics guy, just came up and says, "Luke, are you stressed by how important this is?" And I was like, "No, I wasn't, and now I guess I am." So yeah, I was aware. I didn't. I have to say, I'm really thankful to the fans for managing to, and I'm going to say this quite rightly. So I'm really grateful to the fans for allowing both to coexist in their minds and in their, they seem to be celebrating both in a way. They're like, I love the original, but somehow, we like the new guy as well. Like it's amazing. So I think the whole experience is elevated by the new technology and and indeed the love and reverence that Bloober had and Konami has for its original work. So it's I think that's quite rare and a little bit surprising and a lot delighting that they're able to enjoy both, that we didn't screw it up, that the legacy of the original is still very much in the DNA of the new game, but the new game is, it's hopefully it's up to date and maybe it allows you to go a little bit deeper into the I don't know about into the soul of James, but maybe, just maybe, because you get a bit closer. So I'm very happy that for the most part, I'm sure there are people who go, I hate this guy. It's ruined everything. But for the most part, the responses that I've read, obviously I'm going to protect myself from terrible criticism, but people seem to be enjoying it, and as you said, so I'm thrilled that we didn't. And of course, that's the intention. You don't want to steer too far off course.
No.
It's much loved, material. So yeah, I'm honestly, I'm pleased and edified and delighted that the two things can coexist.
If a bad word has been said, I have not heard it, and my eyes and ears are everywhere when it comes to sort of news related to Silent Hill. So yeah,
that's brilliant. Well, that's brilliant. I mean, I think that's that's testament to a unified vision, really. Like I wanted to play it as truthfully as possible, and the guys wanted me to play it as truthfully as possible. I was aware of the original performance. I'd watched the cutscenes. I'd seen guys' performance and enjoyed it, and it was just a case of remembering the stakes, remembering who you are, and then as far as James remembers anything, but it's kind of my feeling was mostly I didn't want to be too affected by anyone's previous performance, because you want to navigate this stuff as if it's happening to you for the first time. So I kind of went in a little bit blinkered, and I just thought I'm gonna do this. But even vocal pitch, I didn't want to go too for obvious reasons. You don't want to go too low and husky and heroic. But there are moments, right? And I think hopefully there's some variety in the game, and there are moments where he's brutal, and there are moments where he's bewildered and naive and innocent, and then moments when he's less so. So yeah, I'm very pleased that we didn't botch it up.
Did you get to ad-lib anything in the script, or was it all pretty tight?
It was pretty tight.
Yeah.
There weren't so many ad-libs. There may have been one or two that we we riffed on, and I know there was one or two. I have seen some comments online about one sequence where we open up an old uh, chest freezer
Yeah.
and kind of ring. And I enjoyed some of the comments where they say he's so sassy, like he's giving her a
Yeah.
look like, and that may have been my invention on the day because I just thought, well, we have a lot of the other stuff. We can probably afford to throw in a little bit of
Mm.
uh, wow, you're not helping much or whatever it was. It was but yeah, it's there weren't so many ad libs. We did do a few ad libs when we were entering, and you'll have to forgive me, whether it was the bowling alley or the cinema, because I know it changed from one to the other.
It changed. Yeah, it used to be the bowling alley, and then it changed to the cinema. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that we played with a bunch of lines in and around that where he goes in and she doesn't. And I remember we had some fun with that, or collectively we were playing with that stuff. So yes, I suppose there were ad libs. How many made it into the final cut? I'm not quite sure.
I was gonna
But they
say.
were, yeah, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, did you do? Because it sounded like you say you guys had a lot of fun filming and stuff. Like, were any of the scenes like fun to film? Like, did you goof around a lot on the set, or
100%. I don't think you would be able to keep your sanity. I mean, as I say, there was a reverence for the material. It was important that we got it right tonally, and everyone was locked into that. On the other hand, there's a lot of energy and adrenaline coursing through all of us, so necessarily needs a few fun outlets, but. Yeah, I mean, I was given grief every morning. I was, in a very healthy way, and I dare say I threw a little bit back in the direction of the gents. But yeah, Salome's great fun, and Deborah Wild was there as well, and she was a great asset to the team. Like an enormous amount of fun. Like and the Polish guys from Bloober, who we affectionately called Magic 1 and Magic 2 because it's Magic, but we struggled day one. But yeah, no, there was a lot of merriment. The recording studio, the volume, was run by a team called Game On, and they were great. So there were a lot of, but very committed, very serious professionals, but there were these little wry smiles and things all day, every day. Like, yeah, it was a great team. Honestly, it was my first experience of mocap, and I loved it. It's interesting because you don't have as large a crew, you don't have lighting setups, so it's a much quicker process, and in a way, a little more absent of stress, just because there's fewer people trying to do their jobs to the best of their ability. And on a film set, you might have somewhere between 50 and 150 people, all trying to be terribly precise, and occasionally tensions rise. But we didn't have anything like that at all. It was lovely, yeah, and it was, as a result, it was fun. It was like we would all jump on the bus in the mornings, Montreal, and head over to the studio and eat breakfast. And they came in these little mess tins. I don't know if anyone else would have mentioned this, but they came in this sort of the catering company would set us up with these sort of like military one stacks on top of the other mess tins full of different breakfast materials, and it was always quite interesting, the combinations. And so yeah. And
sounds amazing.
it actually was amazing, and
Yeah.
then we would drink copious amounts of coffee. So coffee fuels fun, in my estimation.
Oh, you're talking to the right person.
There you go. I mean, we're on the same timeline, so you know it's 5:30 in the evening, and I'm still drinking the coffee from a car journey I've just done. So yeah, no, it was great fun. They were lovely. I would, we just spent a bit of time with them just before Christmas. The Bloober team, actually.
I saw it was I saw on it was Instagram, I think. There's lots of something going on in the snow, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They very kindly invited us out to just to meet the larger team. It's like 250 people, and uh, it was a little party, I guess. And yeah, we did a lot of selfies.
it's funny you said about sort of being your first time mocapping. It does lead on nicely to my next question. As mainly a TV and film actor, how did you find this experience differ from what you're used to? For first time in the games industry.
Yeah, it was lovely because it's a sort of a quietly collaborative exercise. There's just a few of you in a very large room, and you go over and all huddle around the desk and have a look at the mocked up version of the scene. And it's a three-dimensional graphic rendition, and you go, okay, I need you to sort of start here and move over to this, and then this is where you're, and you actually see the layout of the scene, whether it's Heaven's Night or whatever it might be. So you'd have a little conflab beforehand. You would watch indeed the original scene. A guy would be delivering the lines, and I would see how it had been. And then we would go and go and do our version, and then we'd have a little quiet conference about it again, and then you'd have another go, and yeah, sort of quite, I don't know, just gentle and pleasant. And then of course you have that element of there is no scenery, there is no lighting, so you just imagine everything as if you're in a sandpit as a kid. You're suddenly, there's the forest, and you see it in your mind's eye, and that's it, and that's all. You're constantly. I might have had Mateusz, just the director, occasionally saying, or he and I would have a conversation about, what's the fog level? I mean, how far? What's my range of vision? Can I see 10 feet ahead of me or 30 feet ahead of me? And which is sort of important when you're talking about levels of fear. One of their other games, but it's those details are important. And then when you're thinking about ambient noise and what have you, you'd have those conversations, so you had in your mind what you were fighting against, elementally, I suppose. But it's a fun project, and it's a fun way of working. I rather like this. I think it was 93 cameras around the room.
Oh wow!
You don't have to worry about your angles. However, they did have 2 reference cameras constantly filming. I guess to gather more information about the performance, because indeed there was no scenery behind us or in front of us or around us. And I couldn't help personally, by force of habit, I couldn't help but use those reference cameras to play it, to pitch my face or body according to where the camera was, knowing full well that they might not use those angles. But I don't know, it's just TV training, I think. I mean, it's Holby City you mentioned earlier. I mean, that's a lot of hours, days, years of relating to the camera in a certain way. So I couldn't help but use those reference cameras. I found it quite useful, actually, because when you're telling a story visually, you want to give the right amount of information to the audience. I'm going to go off on a tangent, but I love it in sort of slightly older cinema, 70s and 80s cinema, where you don't always have to see the face of the protagonist. You've had enough of an impression. You know who they are. 2/3 of the way through the movie. So if they then turn up stage and you just hear their voice, you can imagine the expression on their face. And so sometimes I find that cinematically very interesting. There are moments you can pick and choose to give all the information away, and sometimes it's better when it's sort of slightly shrouded in mystery, and you're like, oh, I can't see.
Yeah.
Their face.
Less is more.
Yeah, sometimes less is more. So yeah, those reference cameras, and there's two guys operating them, walking around carrying this heavy lump with cables attached, for all day, many hours each day. But yeah, it was a lovely way to work, and it was sort of similar pace to a continuing drama. We were shooting about 10 pages a day, I guess, which is fairly standard for a 1 hour a week drama. So it's a nice pace. You're shooting about 5 scenes a day, and well, maybe four, 5. Anyway, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was lovely. And also, we would have a good giggle about it. You're wearing these suits where you look fairly preposterous.
Yeah.
And you're going to look very different when it's finally put together.
Yeah. I mean, James was not an easy character to play, I should imagine. And what was your overall takeaway from the entire experience?
I like doing mocap, and I liked working with Bloober very much. And the cast were terrific. It's funny. It's a sort of quietly focused, serious fun, really.
Did it impact you emotionally at all?
I'm sure it did on some. I'm sure it did on some level. Yeah, I haven't. I wasn't privy to any outward expressions of it, but maybe the people near and dear to me were and are. Yes, and it's an interesting one. It was quite a challenge to play someone relatively low key for such day in and day out for a number of weeks. I don't know why I'm saying that, except that he doesn't have a great deal of information, and I think that was quite interesting to play. So it was almost a pure instinctive performance.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the experience very much. Really enjoyed it. And I'm very gratified that it worked out, and that they captured it and used the best of it and turned it into a hopefully a meaningful experience for people who play it.
Yeah. Now I can safely say, now that you are here, solidified as James, I could not see it with anyone else in that role. So thank you for doing justice to the character, the game, and the franchise. Like, on behalf of the Silent Hill community, I don't speak for them all. They're probably telling me to shut up. But I am now the authority.
Yeah. Well, I'm very pleased that you feel that way. I'm very pleased that the Silent Hill community feels that way, because it is important when you cherish something. And that wasn't particularly my game when I was in my early 20s, I guess. But at the same time, no, and it's when it matters, it matters, right? And yeah, I mean, and that's all we can do, I guess, as performers is just apply yourself and just do your best. And it was fairly immersive in that, we jumped into it and did the best that we possibly could do with it. And I think I don't think I could play a role unless I was like, right, I'm really going to give it my best.
Yeah.
So I'm delighted that it resonates. It's important that the game is still important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and I dare say the first time round, they didn't know, right? There was no precedent. They didn't know that they were making something that would really capture the imagination. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure the creators knew that their work was good, but you never know what's going to strike. I don't think you know what's going to be zeitgeist and what's going to be just important culturally. And so I'm again very pleased we didn't screw it up. Yeah, it was a pleasure to do, and even though the material is it's not always pleasant.
No. All right, we're going to briefly take a trip back in time to pre-Silent Hill times for yourself. I understand before acting, you obtained a degree in American Studies, which you got from the University of Wales. Did you have a different field of work in mind before acting, or did you secretly always want to be an actor?
Not even that secretly. Yeah, I always wanted to be an actor. Well, I say always. I think, yeah. I mean, I did a nativity play, as many actors will say. Oh, yeah, I did one when I was 5, and I did. I did a nativity play when I was 5, and I remember our headmistress. It was Our headmistress was Miss Stevens at the time, and she was an amazing hockey playing battle axe. She was a tough lady, very nice, but very tough. And I remember she had tears in her eyes at the end of the play, and I thought, we're onto something. And then I think it went away for a while. At school, I was into sports, and then started doing plays. I was a bit young at school, and my friends all shot up, and I think my credibility as a scrum half diminished at that key moment where you're about 14, 15 years old. And fortunately, I had already strayed into into what was not a theatre, but sort of a room with a bit of a stage. And so at school, I started enjoying doing plays, and that became my safe place. So it was something, place where I could, do some good. And yeah, it sort of carried on. And I knew I wanted to be an actor, but I left school at 17, and I wasn't quite ready to go to drama school. I don't know. I heard about it, people, and it wasn't the leotards that didn't frighten me. It was the thought of being broken down and then rebuilt. And I thought I needed a bit more life experience, so I did a degree. I also rather enjoyed writing essays, so I went and did a degree. And I was originally going to do English and American Studies, but I couldn't keep up with the turnover of books that you had to read a heavy piece of literature each week, and it was just a bit beyond my ability.
Well, it's exhausting a bit.
Yeah, it was. Well, that was just for the English course, and the American Studies course really captured my imagination. I loved it. It was what they call an interdisciplinary course. So there was film, there was history, there was politics. And the rest and literature. But yeah, I loved that course. It was a great faculty, and they really looked after us. It was a 4-year degree. It meant that I spent a bit more time in further education. And while I was doing my 4-year degree, I also appeared in 11 plays. So yeah, it was pretty apparent. And I think they even let me hand in a couple of essays late, very kindly, because they had come to see the play, and so there was a bit of grace was granted. But yeah, I always wanted to be an actor. And if I wasn't going to be an actor, I wanted to be a criminal lawyer, because some of my actors played them in movies that I liked. I think I always wanted to do it.
Fair play. I saw recently that I saw recently that you became a father. If you were to record a video message now for your child to see in, say, 20 years' time, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
I mean, Cairo, that's his name. You are loved. That's not advice, but it's true. Um, have a go. Don't hold back. You may as well as not. You're going to regret the things you don't do, not the things you do. So, and be kind. That's what I just, yeah, it's amazing. I am a new father, and he just turned 4 months yesterday.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's
Good age.
Good age, yes. It's a good age, yes. There's a an element of maturity is slipping in now, but yeah, no, he's amazing. He's yeah, very quickly everything changes and they become your everything. Are you in that situation?
I have a daughter. She's 20. So
What?
yeah, I know, right?
What?
Yeah. She'll be 21 in June.
How is that even possible?
I know.
Sir,
Everyone says that to me all the time.
you're a youngster. What?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm late into the party, but okay, amazing. Well, congratulations to
Thank you. Thank you. Very proud of her. So she's absolutely amazing. So I couldn't wish for. I mean, if everyone says like, you'd never say that you'd change a child, but no, I couldn't wish for a better, upstanding daughter. She's got her head screwed on. She's fantastic. So Natalia, her name is. There you go.
Go, Natalia.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Yeah, it's funny. Parenthood is
It changes you.
yeah. I hope so. I believe so. I hope so. Yeah, it does. It just shifts the focus, and I think there's something. I don't know. For me, it's very refreshing. It doesn't. I mean, you'll know all this, but and I suspected it, and I'm glad it's true. It doesn't reduce your vigor for all the other things at
No.
all. It seems so far to make me want to do it all the more. Do it truthfully, do it well, even maybe do it on time, but do it for them essentially, as far as you can. I mean, they come with their own. They are their own person right from day dot. So I don't know how much you can affect them, but you would know more about that because you've actually been raising somebody for 20 years. It's exciting, and it's nice just to externalize it, I suppose, and make someone else the focus.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, and you'll get this, I suppose, as time goes on, but there's a lot of knowledge you can impart and experiences, and it's without going into too much detail and getting too emotional about it all, but it's a wonderful experience, and yeah, it's very proud.
Nick, it's lovely. It's really lovely. I think you're right, and I suppose scenarios come up, don't they, in life, and you go, oh right, now I can impart knowledge. Here's the things that I've done, or maybe you don't want to do exactly what I. Yeah.
Or sometimes, and I think the harder part is, and sorry, I didn't expect this to turn into but sometimes you might even need to let them make mistakes in order for them to learn. And that's a harder part, I think, is because we've had conversations, and I've seen her make mistakes, and it's you can't protect them from everything.
No, and you have to. Yeah, sometimes you have not forged in fire, but yeah, you're right. They have to test the limits of things. It has to be them, otherwise, yeah. Most experiences, you have to actually experience.
Otherwise, we never learn and grow, right? That's
it. And advice is it's a useful guide, but I don't know about you. I often, I think I saw something recently, a little piece of text about certain friendships, and I was like, oh yes, I have a few friends that I consult, and then I do absolutely the opposite for whatever reason. But yeah, you've got to live it to know it, maybe. Yeah, that's got to be hard. I'll think of this moment when, yes, I'm like, oh right, this is one of those moments I have to let them mistake. Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact I certainly don't have a lot, and certainly not all of the answers, but
oh, none of us do though, right? That's
it's a mess, isn't it? Really,
it is.
life.
It really is. It really
Bit
is.
of a mess that you hope you get through, and you hope that you don't harm too many people, and it's.
But that what you said earlier though is paramount and number one. I think be kind, and if there's one thing you can do in life, I think it is to try and make everyone else's journey around you that a little bit easier. If you can do that with a modicum of success, then I think you're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you can make it just a little bit better, then agreed. What you don't want to do is walk in a room and ruin it for everyone.
No. Which when I was younger, I may have done that, but live and learn.
This is where you're going to get a phone call from Bloober saying he was so hard to work with. Oh my god!
Yeah, you just don't know.
He didn't even talk until he had a second cup of coffee. Which is probably.
Yeah. No, I get that.
We'll have our limits now.
Okay, you are really good at accents. Like really good. Your American accent doesn't sound forced, very natural. You also have another convincing accent for an upcoming, the recent TV series, Gunpowder Siege. Do these accents come naturally, or is it something you really have to practice for? Because as I say, they don't sound forced at all. It's like you wouldn't think that you're having to learn it.
Well, that's great. I'm delighted that you feel that way. I mean, I do enjoy a challenge, but to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't embark upon a character or a role where it was really hard work. I gravitate towards things that I'm like, oh, that's a good fit. Gunpowder Siege, an interesting case in point. That one, I really wanted to be in that project. I really wanted to play that role. And when it came through, they said, "Oh, we're thinking of doing sort of a modern, slightly modern spin on a period piece here. We want it to be sexy and accessible." So we're thinking, maybe a little Peaky Blinders-esque, sort of probably a Birmingham accent. I was thinking, it's very urban. It sounds quite post-industrial to me. I felt, and I wanted my guy to be quite earthy, and so I might go more Yorkshire. Anyway, I just did it, and I sort of flew in the face of the character brief, and I just did a Yorkshire accent, and so it just sat well. I'd never done one before in my life, and I just thought I'll have a go, and they seemed to respond to it. I did a callback, ended up doing it. We didn't discuss it very much again, and that was that. We did talk about it when we were on the project, but yeah, I think it was just a register that worked for me, and American accents I find very comfortable. It's I play a lot of a good amount of American characters, and it seems to, unless somebody calls in and tells me otherwise, it seems to fit relatively easily. I feel when I watch other people and when I think about it as an actor, I sort of want to breathe in the right accent. I want it to always be there, not feel like an add-on. I want it just and often it's quite useful. I was having this conversation recently. I've just started another job, and it's a North American accent, and sometimes it's very useful as a sort of a hook on which to hang character. The musicality is the music is very different, and it helps me inform. It helps inform the role in a way. If it has a certain dialect or a certain timbre, it helps create either a level of relaxation or a level of tightness or whatever it might be. Sometimes it's more clipped and urban, and sometimes it's more sort of Western and a little slower or whatever it might be. But yeah, I enjoy I enjoy accented work, to be honest.
I do. It's a secret. It's a secret love of mine. Just, you know. Yeah. I get.
Well, then I take it as a great compliment that you don't think I'm rubbish. That's amazing.
No. Seriously, I was impressed. It's funny. Like, you see a lot of English actors doing American accents. Not so many American actors doing English accents.
Yeah, I know. I think I think it's hard to do an accent. I don't know. It's hard to do. I mean, it's. I enjoy it when I see it done very well and very consistently, and I think consistency is a large part of it. There are so many different American accents. There are so many, but so long as you don't, yeah, you don't hear the accent of the underlying accent of the actor underneath it every now and again. So if you get those pops of, oh, that was the wrong vowel sound, that it kind of drives me crazy when I watch it. I think I'll take a stab at explaining why more British actors are good at American accents than actors are at British accents, and that's not to say there aren't people who do it incredibly well, because there are. But I guess we've been overexposed to American movies and culture. Like, there's so much for us to devour.
True.
I maybe that's a rubbish answer, because I know that Americans love British TV, so they have access. Yeah, in the Americans' defense, I suppose their accent is more akin to an old English accent than ours is. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I find it very useful sometimes to find access to the character, and I enjoy doing it. And I think on some level I probably romanticize the American accent, because it just sounds so cool. It reminds me, it puts me in mind of so many great entertainments that and there's a certain swagger to it, and a certain conversational ease about it, I think. Yeah, I'm pleased it worked, and I was very pleased about the Gunpowder Siege as well, because I never tried that before. So yeah,
good accent. It was a good accent. It was really good. It's funny. Peek behind the curtain. I used to do a lot of tabletop role play, like akin to D&D, but sort of more set in futuristic times. And if I wanted to, because I was DMing the thing, if I wanted to sort of play a character, I would watch a video of that character's accent for hours and then I would practice it until I got it right.
But that's a huge part of it, isn't it? It's mimicry and really hearing those sounds, and then if you have the ability to recreate it, that's pretty cool. I mean, it is pretty cool.
I'm not necessarily very good, but it's I'll give it a go.
Right. I'm not going to throw down the gauntlet and make you do it now, but
no, please no.
when we come off there, I want a full spectrum.
I will try. I'll try my best. Okay, random question now. Have you ever been confused with Tom Ellis?
Oh, yeah, in a word, yes.
And how often?
I had it quite recently, actually. I think it's a great compliment. I think he's a terribly handsome man. He's taller than me, sadly. I have met him once. Yeah, he's a little bit taller. And he's very charming. And so yes, I've had it a few times, and I've gone, okay, sure, if you want to believe that, that's fine. Um, yeah, once had somebody yelling at me across the street, that they knew me from TV, and I was like, oh right, it's probably Holby because I was on Holby at the time.
Yeah.
They were screaming, I know you on telly, and I know you. You're that doctor. You're that doctor." And I was like, "Yeah, it's true." He said, "Yeah, yeah, you're that doctor in EastEnders." Oh,
Wait, what?
okay. So yeah, I have had the Tom Ellis thing a few times, um,
Damn.
and yeah, but you're lucky me.
Or lucky him, because he might get confused with
Well,
you as well.
there is that argument.
Let,
I
let,
mean,
let's
far be
let's be honest. Not saying that you two are interchangeable at this point, but
listen, he's doing quite rightly. He's doing very very well. Yeah, amazing. I'll take it. I'll take it. There are worse comparisons.
Sorry, I had to get that one in.
It's all good.
Final question: what's harder, playing a surgeon, a vampire, a pirate hunter, or a hostage negotiator?
Right, a surgeon. There was a vampire in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. A pirate hunter,
Yeah.
and I've forgotten what the last one was. But
Hostage negotiator.
you know, yeah. Well, they all have their challenges. The pirate hunter was tough because I was really very fond of the pirates and the actors who played them. So hunting them and hanging them was hard. That was challenging, but a fantastic project. I loved working on that. The writing was amazing, and the people that I worked with were fantastic. So not too challenging, really. And we were in South Africa. It was hot. I will say, under wigs and woolen breeches, in 38 to 40-degree heat every day, on the deck of a boat. That was hot, but it was that was the polar opposite in a way. I appreciate that those square rigged ships were actually mounted on trucks in car parks, but in terms of scenery and context, you didn't have to imagine anything. It was all made to scale, and it was perfectly built, and we had a full town, and there was a lagoon, and yeah, it was amazing. So you didn't really have to imagine your surroundings at all. So very different to the Silent Hill experience. So that made that easy. So we'll move on from that. Hostage negotiator. I mean, that was a joy. Talk about that. That was all about micro expressions. It was all about, but less about mine than reading other people's. That was very cool. I loved that experience. Whether we were in Toronto, France, or Hungary, that was great. So probably not that one. Vampires. I mean, yeah, you're in an imaginative world there because you're playing, ancient demons from other dimensions. Some of the armor was challenging, but yeah, that was really fun. Surgeon, probably the hardest, simply because of the jargon. You have to learn that stuff so well, so that it runs off the tongue, and it's often Latin terms, or it's medication that is pretty specific, and when you're doing it at speed, and you're running off. I'm trying to think what it might have been. I can only think of adrenaline right now, but yeah, you're running off adrenaline, but you're also prescribing interesting concoctions at speed, whilst faking that you can sew, which I absolutely cannot. But up in theatre. But there were cool things where you could mime. I enjoyed it because in a wider shot you could mime that you were pulling the proline, and there was tension at the end of it. But it was really fun. Holby was lovely community. All of those things that you've mentioned, I've had a great time. So they all have their challenges, but then that's why we do it. It's hard to pick which is the hardest. Holby was very hard to say goodbye to. I chose to leave that after, and it was such a good group of people. And I'm sorry that it doesn't run anymore. It ended a year or two ago, but because a lot of really good people were making that. No. So no, none of it was hard. It was all.
Hey, it's a good diplomatic answer. I like it. Perfect. Right, Luke, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. If you've got stuff coming up that you can talk about and would like to plug, now's a good time to do it. Got anything in the pipeline that you can talk about?
One that I cannot talk about, which I'm very excited about. So yes, no, I can't talk about that.
Fair.
I guess there'll be notices about that soonish. It's a TV show that I'm going to play the lead on, so that's exciting. And I know I dipped into a bit of Terminal List Dark Wolf, which is different. Recently, that I guess will come out fairly soon. That's exciting. There is a video game on the horizon where I won't say what it is because I know I'm born to secrecy, but I won't be playing the protagonist. I'll be playing the antagonist, so that's quite fun.
Okay, so interesting.
Getting out my villainous dimensions.
I like it.
Not too distant, so that's cool. It's all a bit. Sorry,
no, not at all. Obviously,
I'll talk about them.
But more importantly, Silent Hill. If you haven't played it already, which I will say at this point, it's highly unlikely, but just play it again. keep playing it. If you want to catch Luke on the socials, where's the best place to get you? Instagram, is it?
Instagram, yeah. J Roberts on Instagram.
Perfect. Go there, give him a follow if you don't already. I'm pretty sure you do though. So, but just in case. As per usual, I would like to give a massive shout out to my patrons for your support. You're all absolutely amazing. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you like what you watched today, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also like this video. Comments, feedback, please leave them on the video and let us know what you think. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at DonPedroX for regular updates on upcoming videos. And if you do fancy supporting me, like I mentioned, there is a Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. Right. See you next time, folks.